Thanks for staying with us. It's time now to look through the top stories on Nigerian newspapers, and we will begin with the blueprint. It says, Orji Kalu to Kingsmen on 2023. Igbo presidency not feasible now, urges support for Ashiwaju. Will be greatest beneficiaries of Tinubu presidency, he says. Dismisses impeachment threats against Buhari. Says agitation triggered by security challenges. You find all of the details on the front page of the blueprint. We move now to the front page of the Daily Times. 2023, INEC releases final list of candidates. Declares Tinubu, Atiku, Obi, Kwankwaso, others for presidency. OK Kachuku, despite suspension by ADC. Rabiu makes list of senatorial candidates. Lawan's name missing. 4,223 candidates to vie for 469 National Assembly seats. You'll find the details on the front page of the Daily Times. And still talking about the 2023 elections, on the front page of the First News newspaper now, INEC declares Tinubu, Atiku, Obi, 15 others. States candidates educational qualification, Tinubu BSc, Atiku MSc, Obi GCE, Kwankwaso Primary 6 certificate. Right, you find the details on the front page of the First News newspaper. And to the front page of the Daily Trust primaries. Despite generating billions, APC faces a cash crunch. Party in debt, owes staff, committee members yet to be paid 3 months after. Fund being spent on running of party. Spokesman speaking there. Kemi.
The Nation is next, and the latest INEC announcement is the big story there. INEC declares Tinubu, Atiku, Obi, and 15 other presidential candidates, it says, for the 2023 poll. While Senator Lawan's name is missing on the INEC list, and the INEC goes on to declare Adeola, Adebule, Abiru Bamidele, Olujimi, and others for senatorial tickets. This is on the front page of The Nation. The Nigerian Tribune is next, and of course, is still following in the spirit at the moment. That's INEC's list of presidential and National Assembly candidates. It releases list of 18 presidential candidates, as well as more than 4,230 candidates of the National Assembly, while Senator Rabiu survives. Senator Lawan's name is missing, and Kachuku, that's the ADP's presidential candidate, makes the list. ADC, as a presidential candidate, makes the list. Let's look at Daily Independent now. INEC releases final list as Obi, Atiku, Tinubu draw battle lines. Umahi, Akpabio make list as senatorial candidates, while that of Lawan is missing, and Governor Obaseki loses as INEC recognizes Obi's camp candidates. Finally, with me, okay, I still have one more. Presidential poll, INEC declares Atiku and Tinubu, Obi, 15 others. This is on Daily Sun. Umahi, Akpabio, Tambuwal make senatorial list, while Lawan, Obaseki's camp lose out. And finally, is this Nigeria with me? A different lead story there. This time, Senate raises alarm over crude oil theft, but it will push economy into coma. This from the Senate President Ahmed Lawan. Over now to Kelly.
Yes, away from this Nigeria, the leadership is next. It says 219 days after National Assembly wades into ASU strike, wants federal government union to shift ground. That's the leadership newspaper. The Guardian is next. It says federal government leaves behind 60.9 trillion naira debt and other liabilities in 2023. Buhari seeks Senate's approval for 402 billion naira promissory notes. Well, that's The Guardian. And finally, with me, Business Day is next. Nigerian ports raise congestion as 6,000 containers sit idle. Nigerian ports raise congestion as 6,000 containers sit idle. Well, that's business day.
Right. Let's look at some of the stories here now, and perhaps we'll begin with the INEC releasing its final list of presidential, vice presidential candidates, as well as senatorial candidates. And we saw that there were about 18 presidential candidates and 4,223 National Assembly candidates that were listed there. And this list is already generating reactions across the board, especially in some states where there were parallel primaries, looking at Edo, for instance. And then we had the case of the Yobe North, where we had the person of Ahmed Lawan also having some form of contest. He was not part of the primaries, though, but we had the person of Bashir Machina, who was said to have won. And there was a back and forth with regards to that case too. But it seems like both names are missing on that.
I'm not sure he would even agree with you that he was not part of the primaries.
In person of Ahmed Lawan.
Ahmed Lawan is the Senate president.
Of course. Because he had thrown his hat in the ring for the presidential primaries, but he lost, obviously. He wasn't part of those who were, picked at the end of the day. But we're seeing the back and forth now. We're seeing the reactions being generated, persons who will be the face for Nigeria's elections come 2023, as we, counting down towards the campaigns beginning. And I'm wondering what we're beginning to make of, this 2023 elections.
So, well, I think in all there are about 18
presidential
candidates.
Yeah.
Personally, I would have loved to perhaps see just the three front runners. Or just major, just 2 or 3 parties.
Why?
Instead of having
18 of them.
18 of them.
Why?
Look, Leicester City won the Premier League, I think 3 or 4 years ago, thereabout. There's almost no way. I mean, there's almost no way. It would take a very serious miracle for any of the other parties to win, especially when you follow the kind of politics that we play in this part of the world. For instance, in the U.S., they have, you're either a Democrat or you're a Republican, but I understand they also have other parties.
And they are independent.
And they are independent.
You can run
but
as an independent.
Everyone knows that for you to become the president of the U.S., you either have to belong to one of those parties. So for me, I would have preferred that the other parties, I mean, I know that, we are trying to to a different...
The beauty of democracy is that you have
of course.
vibrant opposition, options for people to, to have.
But what kind of structures have they built over the years? I believe in having alliances. I've said that before. I believe in having alliances, having coalitions, trying to see how we can always come together to unite and become a formidable force. Mm-hmm. So for me, instead of having 18 presidential candidates, I would have loved to see a perhaps party system where you try to align with maybe
either of the three.
Either of the three. That's what for me I would have perhaps subscribed to.
Well, but some would say your view.
The more the merrier. Some say
the more the merrier. But that's your view.
And then the issue of ideology
will also come to play because you cannot align with a party that does not, portray your ideology, so to speak. But then again, the controversies that had led up to this final list coming up, Kemi, I will see the ADC candidate there, despite the controversy around him. His name is still on the list. You recall, we were speaking about this with his spokesperson last week, where he was talking about the fact that he cannot be suspended because he's the party's candidate. And here, his name is on the list.
He had things going in his favor, talking about the younger Kachuku, who is vying for president. He had things, and that was what Adeniyi Kunu also built on in that interview, wherein he said INEC was at the primaries that, saw the emergence of Kachuku as the ADC's flag bearer. So his name had been submitted, and so naturally it had gone more or less beyond the party. So, well, that is said, but of course, that's on the one hand. The party still appears to have some unresolved issues among high-ranking members. So it also comes to the issue of, yes, okay, so his name is on the ticket, but then what value would you attach to it if the party is really in rumbles at the moment? So the few days ahead of campaigns will be very crucial for the party, because they obviously have to come out with a united front. And you rightly pointed out, Mashina's name is absent from the list, the senatorial list for that district now, as Yobe North, as with
Lawan,
the Senate President Ahmed Lawan. So that's rather interesting, because unlike this case kind of stands out for me. For Akpabio, for Dave Umahi, they all are seen to have, gone on to the next phase now of their bids for election. But I recall that a few days ago, APC was said to be in court on this matter of them insisting that Ahmed Lawan's name is there. I don't know if that, apparently that matter is still ongoing, so we don't know what's going to happen. And for Akpabio's case, INEC said it was obeying a court order that mandated it to recognize Godswill Akpabio as the rightful bearer or the rightful candidate now. So, well, it's not Uhuru yet, apparently, because there's a window now for aggrieved parties to head to the court, not to INEC now, to maybe challenge some of the names that we see there.
But at the end of the day, it's the courts that might still settle all of that.
And most likely, because INEC is not a court, so if nothing can be done, they head to court.
That's what it is. So we will still be seeing some challenges.
It doesn't appear to be the end.
Yes, and that's what we've seen with the kind of politics that we play here, where the courts have become an integral process, very critical, very pivotal to the elections that we play. I'm just wondering, for instance, in the years which I mentioned earlier, Democrats and all Republicans, do we see this kind of issues play out? Really very rare. Really
Trump
very rare.
brought it up.
I mean, Trump brought, yes, of course, Trump and the Trumpist generation brought that up.
Typical of Trump.
Right. It was unheard of at a point, and then...
So it shows the kind of democracy as well that we practice here, and how fragile it is. Most parties are rocked with internal crisis, and we see it across board. PDP, APC, even Labour Party, and of course not.
Perhaps, like Kemi rightly pointed out, as now that the list is out, parties will begin to put their house in order, because they have to have a united front. Until then, that will be left to be seen. Right.